how to transform your life in 90 days. So if you want your life to change, you'll first need to approach this transformation in an extreme way. It doesn't have to be a permanent thing. You don't have to be extreme your whole life. Once you get out of the mud, you can afford to take your foot off the gas. But to get to that point, you're going to need to completely rewire your brain and belief system. If you've clicked on this video, I'm going to assume that you're still working on your goals and are not successful yet. And that's completely fine. I can guarantee that if you can craft and commit to a new productive routine in 90 days, if you stick to this guide in 3 months, in 90 days, you'll be a completely different person with new positive habits and a fresh foundation that will make your success inevitable. Alright, so why do we have to be extreme? Because you don't yet have the discipline, patience, and focus to succeed in this transformation. You know, you build discipline like you build a muscle at the gym. And so when I say extreme, I don't mean forcing yourself to sit at your desk 10 hours a day and work like an insect. What I'm saying is your attitude and commitment to this transformation needs to be extreme. You need to have one, yes, just one specific goal. So for example, if you're in commerce, your goal could be to sell 10 products, or perhaps you sign 5 clients. In fact, better yet, your goal should be to sell 1 product. Your goal should be selling just the first product, or to sign the first client, just one. I call it the 1% achievement. So imagine your business is a video game and you start by unlocking your first achievement in the game, and so the status of the game's completion is at 1%. I will sign my first client, or I will sell my first product. Then when you eventually hit this goal, you move the goalpost out slightly. You allow yourself to feel rewarded, and then you move on to the next milestone. So then you aim to sell 2 products, then 5 products, then 10, then 20, 100, 1,000, and so on. Think of the flow channel diagram. If something is too easy and repetitive, it leads to boredom and lack of focus. If something is too hard and beyond your current level, it leaves you frustrated, anxious, and therefore unfocused. So you want to be doing tasks and setting goals that are in the optimal Goldilocks zone, where the challenge matches your skill and knowledge level at the time. And if the goal of selling your first product is still too difficult or overwhelming for you, that's fine. Move the goalpost further out. Your new 1% goal could be finding a course that will give you the foundational knowledge to sell your first product, or even speaking to just one person about the business to give you a little bit of insight, or to move you closer towards your goal. So if you find yourself getting frustrated, just move the goalposts out wider and wider until you have a goal that engages you. The flow state, focus, is achieved in a challenging and engaging problem or task that isn't frustrating but also isn't too easy and repetitive. So if you go in guns blazing after quitting all of your bad habits the day before, cold turkey, and your goal is offer it 20k a month, within your first week you're going to realize that that's impossible. You're going to fail, and that's okay, but setting a crazy goal and having unrealistic expectations only makes you disheartened, and you will give up. You'll relapse on all your old habits and nothing will end up changing. And you absolutely can hit these goals, 10 to 20k a month, but you do it by aiming really, really low and then building the skill set, knowledge, discipline, and focus to hit the milestones one by one and see how far you can really take it. In this transformation, we're rewiring our belief system and understanding for the first time that success really is possible and not just a hazy goal in the far off distance. And so the first step to obtaining this focus is, like I mentioned earlier, removing bad habits, removing obstacles. You know, you've probably been in a rut before. You're running away from your problems, hiding from the work that you know you should be doing. You're distracting yourself with bad habits, and your productivity is getting worse and worse by the day. And when you're this down bad, moderation doesn't work. You can't have one day where you go to the gym, do your work, and eat clean, but in the other days of the week you slack off and play video games all day. To first get to a solid foundation of discipline, you need to tick the boxes every day, even if they're small targets. And so you start afresh by completely removing the old habits. This is the first step in allowing your subconscious to understand that change is coming. The way you're doing now is something new and different. You cut out all the old habits, yes, because their habits are harmful, but mainly because they remind your subconscious of lazy days and dark times. You can't adopt good habits on a poor foundation, so disconnect from the old patterns that clearly weren't working for you. You build extreme focus on a specific goal by cutting out all distractions that take away from your goal, and by simplifying your day to place the majority of your mental energy into moving towards said goal. A healthy, grounded, focused obsession on your goal is the way to achieve your transformation. You can't coast your way out of a life sentence. You can't coast your way out of mediocrity. To first break out, you have to sprint, fight, and obsess with the goal. And when you're obsessed with something, you begin to see things differently. You will take inspiration. You know, it's almost like you generate new ideas from thin air every day. When you're obsessed with a sport, you can mentally visualize a technique or a play, and you begin to see openings and areas of improvement that you wouldn't have seen before. You're looking at the world through a new filter, and everything that you do begins to align with your goal. Or you begin to identify what distracts you from your goal. And at that point, you don't need to fight an urge to relapse on a bad habit, because now now you can see how it takes away from your goal in a new way that you hadn't thought about before. And so you want about 70 to 80% of your creative energy going towards your goal. Everything else is secondary. You don't have to quit your sport or stop going to the gym, but if you want to level up in business, you need to give it your focus. Give your sport a secondary position in your life. Your primary goal should be your business. By all means, use the gym, use your sport to fuel your goal, but I would highly advise against competing and training too hard every single day, because then your goal becomes competition in your sport. And by all means, if your goal is your sport, then that's fair. But if your goal is business, primary, and your sport should fuel the primary, not take away from it. Right, for 90 days, pick one venture, just one. Research it well, make sure it's a good, sustainable fit. No chopping and changing after that. No trying to look into new avenues, new businesses, or new fancy shining lights. Set your first 1% goal. Cut out all distractions and create a fresh, new routine without any of your old habits. Wake up at a different time, start walking at this time instead of this time, and fit some push-ups into your day, XYZ. But again, craft your day around your primary goal, which should be business, and design your routine to be as simple as possible. You should limit your screen time and consumption anyway, but even if you're using YouTube to learn your business, make sure your learning is as minimal as possible. Learn from one creator, listen to one guru, don't take on conflicting advice. This will only confuse you and lead you in different directions. If you chase two rabbits, you end up chasing neither. Choose one course, read one book at a time, and make sure everything that you consume is linked to your business. Everything that you consume has to move you towards your goal. If not, then it's secondary or a distraction entirely. And if it is secondary, either severely limit it or up to you can cut it out. So for example, if you're in crypto, don't feed yourself information from a real estate guru. Or if you're in real estate, don't listen to a crypto guru. A crypto guru. If you're in real estate, don't listen to a crypto guru. The core ideologies and beliefs are just too different, and the advice will only distract you or lead you in two opposite directions. You want to go deep and specialize in one chosen area. You want to dig 20 feet down, not 15 feet wide. And as you go through your 90 days, continue to further simplify your routine. You find a gym time that works better for you. You could start going in the night time, maybe before you went in the morning, but now you go in the night and you use it to unwind. You find simpler ways to get things done. You start to meal prep, find time to organize your desk or to clean your room. Everything you do is making your business easier. Everything you do is making the time that you decide to sit down and work simpler and just overall easier. It's kind of like that thing that Steve Jobs was doing. You remember he was wearing the same outfit every day, so he was limiting his decision fatigue because he's not concerned about what he wears. His main goal is his business. His main goal was his company, Apple. And so he designed his entire day, his life, to be as simple as possible. And you can do the exact same thing. Find ways to make your day simpler. Find ways to cut out things you don't need to do. Find ways to outsource work that you know you're not good at, and focus on the work that makes you money. Focus on the work that needs to be done. Don't obsess too much about the hours of work done. I want you to focus on the tasks. So in a day, get X number of tasks done. Don't focus on how long it takes you, but how quickly you can do it. If you can do 3 hours worth of work in 1 hour, then you're winning. There's no need to overcomplicate it. Obsess over high value tasks that need to be done. Don't focus on the wishy-washy. Don't, for example, if you're on YouTube, don't change your banner, don't change your profile picture, don't change your channel description, because what's that really going to do for you? The main source of work for YouTube is creating videos. So therefore, your most important tasks are creating videos, scripting, recording, and then maybe editing. But ideally, editing should be outsourced. Anything that you don't need to do should be outsourced. And this is what I mean. Make your days simpler, make your work simpler. Focus on the high value tasks and rinse and repeat. So yeah, that's a lot of that. But to recap, the essence is to focus, have extreme focus. So the majority of your mental energy is put towards your business and goal. You might not have that discipline yet, but you build it slowly over time by committing to the goal. Set your 1% goal, set your first small goal, signing your first client, selling your first product. Again, if it's too hard, move the goalpost further out. I will speak to this person about this business, or I will look into this course. Make sure it's not too hard and not too easy. Find flow state and remove all bad habits. You want to start a completely new routine with fresh habits, fresh routine, fresh ideas. a fresh mental space, almost like you discard the old that didn't work and you move into the new routine that will work for you. And if it doesn't work for you, adjust as you go. Find ways to make your days simpler and more streamlined. But yeah, if you found this useful, take it seriously, write your numbers down, break into steps. Clarity beats motivation every single time. And if you want more content like this, consider subscribing. I'm documenting what works, what doesn't, and how to build real financial stability over time. And remember, the goal isn't to get lucky, it's to build a system that makes success inevitable.